Well, hi class. I just finished grading the second round of papers. That would be the All of Me. Also, you had already submitted the How Did I Become Me papers. And those take a little while to grade because I actually have read through those and I'm trying to give you comments that I think specifically relate to what you'd mentioned in the paper. But I have those done. And now for the assignments that you've also submitted, like the audience analysis assignment, now you're working on the quiz on how to structure the critic speech. With those, I'm going to go through a lot faster. So the last couple of assignments that you've turned in since the papers, I'll be just giving you a complete, not going to go into a lot of detail as far as the comments, because I want to get all caught up so I'm ready to go. Once you start turning in your outlines for the critic speech, you'll get to that the middle of this week, because I really want to make sure you get the outlining down. That's such an important part of public speaking. And I'm going to spend some time going over the structural format that you'll utilize for the critic speech a little bit later in today's lecture. But first, I just wanted to comment on the papers and tell you how pleased I was with the work and the effort that you put into those papers. Because really what you're doing, those are two what we call self-analytical papers. And that takes a lot of work, right? That's not the easiest thing in the world, to reflect back on your past and kind of figure out how you've developed certain attitudes and behavioral norms. So really takes some work. And I appreciate not only the work that you did on the papers, but also you guys are doing such a good job in terms of responding to your classmates' papers. You're encouraging, you're supporting comments. Those are all really good, strong aspects of the class, and they really help to build our comfort level and to really build a sense of community, which is so important in terms of dealing with speech anxiety. In fact, even though all your experiences are different and a lot of different things that you had to go through, if you really look at how you've developed your attitude towards public speaking at this point, the stories are really pretty similar. I mean, essentially, you get thrown into a public speaking situation early in your academic career, sometime in elementary school, second, third grade, you have to get up, give a presentation. But, K through 12, even though you're asked to give presentations in the classroom, you'll get some tips and guidance on how to be an effective speaker, but you don't get any real in-depth training on public speaking until you get to the college level. And so really what happens for all of us, we get thrown into a public speaking situation without a lot of training. So we're just trying to figure it out as we go. And we're dealing with probably the hardest audience to engage, and that would be other kids, right? Other kids in elementary school, other kids in middle school, and even in high school aren't the best audiences, as so many of you have detailed in your stories. A lot of teasing, making fun of people because they don't know how to speak effectively, making fun of accents, what you're wearing, all those kinds of things. Well, it kind of makes sense as to why so many of us struggle with our confidence when it comes to public speaking as adults, because of the way that we had to learn about public speaking as we were going to school K through 12. So realize, most of us have a lot of speech anxiety based on our experiences. And so what I want you to understand, now you're in a much safer environment when it comes to learning how to be an effective speaker. You're in a class and you're finally getting some real in-depth training as far as how to be an effective speaker. And once you're an adult, the audiences are much more supportive and encouraging. In fact, I've been teaching in the college class. I've been teaching public speaking in the college classroom for over 30 years. And I can't think of one instance where somebody's up giving a speech and then somebody in the audience, ha ha ha, you idiot. How could you say that? That's so dumb. I've never seen an example of that. My experience in the college classroom has been that students, college students, tend to be very supportive and very encouraging because you're all in this together. So this is a good place to learn public speaking. So even if you've had a lot of anxiety in the past, it's just based on your past experiences. And that's what I'm really trying to get you to come to an understanding of as you're doing the two self-analytical papers that you've submitted. So the way out of it is to kind of just have this attitude where I'm starting over, right? That was in the past, wasn't a good experience, and here are the reasons why. I'm in a much better place now where I can be safe, I can be confident, I can be comfortable with what I have to say to other folks. So realize now, from this day forward, what we're really after in this class is we want to develop your comfort level, and we want you to become more and more confident with your ability to speak in public. And realize the skill set that we're learning isn't that difficult as far as look at who you're talking to, right? Open mouth, project your voice, and try to be clear, right? We've been doing those things all of our lives. The problem is dealing with the anxiety, and then when you analyze why you feel so anxious when it comes to public speaking, and we look at the past events, well, it makes sense. So it's like we're turning over a new leaf, we're starting a new chapter, and we're starting a chapter where the goal in this class is not only to teach you how to be an effective speaker, but for you to start buying into your natural talent, your natural ability, start believing in your ability to speak in public. And that's so important because your voice is your power. I mean, if you just look at it from another perspective, why would you want to give up your power? Why would you want to give up your ability to speak? We certainly don't want to keep ourselves from speaking because of anxiety that happened as a result of something in our past. So let's be confident. Let's maximize our ability to speak in public because our voices are our power. All right. So this week we're getting into the modules dealing with how to structure a speech, and then we're going to take what we learned about structuring a speech, and at the end of this week you'll be writing your first outline for a speech and giving your first presentation where you are using an outline to present the actual speech. So real important part of the class. I know when I went back to college, and I had a similar experience to some of you, I barely made it through high school, barely graduated. I had to go to summer school after my senior year just to be able to graduate from high school. So I certainly wasn't a model student. And then I went out and did stuff. I didn't go back to college till I was about 25 years old. And I remember when I took my first public speaking class, and I had done some public speaking, right? So I was already a pretty experienced speaker, but I was amazed to discover that there were set organizational formats, there were structural patterns to follow anytime that I give a speech. So I thought that was one of the best things I learned about public speaking, and that's what we're going to learn this week, how to put an outline for a speech together. And please, make sure that you utilize all of the available materials. One thing I've learned about online teaching is you basically have two kinds of students. You have the students that really want to maximize their full potential. They want to get the most that they can out of the class. They understand the importance and value of being an effective public speaker. So they read all the material. They watch all the instructional videos. They take all the information they can, and then they utilize that when they're actually working on their assignments. And then we have the second group. Those of you that wait until the last minute to get your work done, and then you go to the module, instead of reading through all of the instructional material and watching all of the instructional videos, you just go right to the assignment, see if you can kind of figure out on your own how to slop it together and then actually submit it. And I know I had to go through online training for this particular class. That was one of the first things I tried to do. Go to the quiz, see if I can figure it out. And then once I understand, okay, I need to read all this stuff if I'm really going to learn the information and be able to apply it. And so I need you to be in that first group. So if you're not utilizing all of the available material, you need to start now, because I'll tell you this, You won't get the outlining down. You won't learn one of the most valuable aspects of public speaking, how to structure a speech, how to put a good speech outline together, unless you utilize all of the materials. Because I have set outline formats that I want you to learn for each of the remaining speaking assignments that you'll do in class, and I want you to follow the outline formats religiously, perfectly. When I show you how to put an outline together, that's exactly how I want you to put the outline together. That's why I give lots of written instruction on how to put an outline together. I provide lots of sample outlines. In other words, I'll utilize outlines that students have done for the same speech that you're working on, and you'll have access to those outlines. So you want to utilize all of the available material, watch the instructional videos, so you have all of the available information so you can do your outlines properly. In fact, let's do this. Let's go to the modules now so I can go over the structural format. Also, I can give you a couple tips on how to ensure you get a 10 on the upcoming quiz on speech structure. Let's go to the modules now. Okay, so now we're on the modules, and here we have the first of the 3 modules for this week. And as I said, this is on how to structure a speech. So you want to make sure that you go through all the material, especially this preparing a speech outline, which I give you an overview of what a basic speech outline looks like. And then right here on constructing the outline for the critic speech, I actually show you how to put the outline together and what that finished product should look like. And one thing I hope you realize that from here on out, whenever you're writing an outline for a speech, and with speeches, we do outlines. We don't do essays. I don't want to see anyone turn in an essay as an outline. And the difference is an essay is written in paragraph form. An outline, we spread out all of the content. So see here, we kind of have a symbol to represent each of the lines in the outline. But the point that I'm making, anytime that you're writing an outline for a speech, or you're writing a paper for that matter, once you have your topic and your thesis, you know what you're going to talk about and the purpose for talking about it, always begin putting an outline together by starting with the body first. Because realize that in a speech outline, you really have 3 sections. You have the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. In the introduction, all you're doing is telling the audience, here's what I'm going to talk about. In the body of the speech, you talk about all of the content. In the conclusion, you summarize what you just talked about. So I know for a lot of folks, you're sitting down to write a paper, and once you get ready to start writing, you end up just staring at a blank piece of paper. And one of the reasons why is you're probably trying to start with the introduction. So if you look at that logically, you're writing a paper by first trying to write what you're going to use to set up what you're going to talk about, but you haven't written that yet. So it makes sense, just from a logical standpoint. Anytime you put an outline together for a speech, once you have your topic and your thesis statement, put the body of the speech together first. Then go through and put together your introduction, because in your introduction, you're just setting up what you're going to talk about. It's much easier when you know what you're going to talk about. And then same thing for the conclusion. It's easier to summarize information once you've actually written the info. And I will argue it's faster and more efficient to write the introduction and the conclusion together. Now, I go into a lot of detail on that. If we just go to the next page on the module and look at the instructional video, because here I give an overview of the importance of speech structure, kind of what I was just telling you, how to effectively prepare an outline for a speech. Then in detail, I'll go over the outline format for the critic speech, and I will also tell you how to get a perfect score on the quiz on speech structure. So you want to make sure that you watch that video. I've looked at the quizzes. Just a few of you have got it right the first time, but that's okay. On that quiz, on the structure, you can take that quiz up to 3 times. So if you just watch this video right here, and especially the last part of the video, I walk you through the process of how to answer that quiz with the outline format that you'll need to get 10 points on it. In fact, let's go ahead. Let me jump ahead. Let's take a look at the outline format that you want to use when you're answering how to put an outline together for the critic speech on that quiz. All right. And so here, and I go over this outline format in the video that I just showed you, but essentially, if you want to get a 10 on the quiz, this is what it should look like right here. So in your introduction, you want to make sure that you have your attention getter. And what you're doing with an attention getter is just grabbing the attention of the audience. And in the video I just referred to, I give you a couple different examples of types of attention getters you can use in a speech. Then you want a clear topic sentence that tells the audience the topic of your speech. I use McDonald's in this sample one, so this reminds me of McDonald's, which is the focus of my speech today. That's all that topic sentence does. Here's what I'm going to talk about. Your thesis statement in the critic speech should be a single sentence that gives your overall opinion of the topic. So there you can choose from a couple different fast food restaurants. And I just use the fast food restaurants because those are things that I know that all of you are familiar with and should be able to come up with an outline off the top of your head if you know the format. So with the thesis, just give me your overall opinion. I really like McDonald's. I hate McDonald's. Then, this is where a lot of you are kind of messing up. In the preview, you simply tell us the titles of the two main points you'll cover in the body of the speech in the order in which you will cover them. Again, that's why it's important. Always write the body of the speech first. You'll know what your main points are. You need to know your main points so you can preview them at the end of your introduction. And make sure you listen to this, because all of you are using the same outline format. That means in the body of the speech for your critic speech, you're going to give a description of the topic and an evaluation of the topic. That means that all of your previews should sound pretty much the same. In the next few minutes, I will provide a description of McDonald's and I'll give you my overall evaluation. If you're doing it on In-N-Out, preview is going to be the same, because in the body, you're going to give your description of In-N-Out and your evaluation. So preview, in the next few minutes, we're going to look at my description and my evaluation. You'll find when you get to the actual critic speech, you have a lot more room as far as selecting an actual topic. It could be that you're doing your speech on a particular movie, all right? So it could be your thesis statement. Black Panther is one of my favorite movies, but your preview is going to be the same as everybody else's. In the next few minutes, I'll give you a description of the film and my overall evaluation. I mentioned this in the video. I'll mention it here too. If you do your speech on a movie or a book for the critic speech, only give us an overview in the description, no spoilers, because it could be there. Maybe somebody hasn't seen Black Panther. I doubt it, but it could be. And they go, oh, I want to see that movie. Well, don't tell us who dies at the end, right? That ruins the movie. So in the description, only up to a point, but all your main points will be the same, because in that critic speech outline format, you're going to give us a description of whatever your topic is, and you're going to give us your evaluation. Then in the body of the speech, and I'm not after the content, right? I don't care about how long the speech is. I'm after you understanding the structure. So here in the description, just make sure that you have at least 2 descriptive comments. And the difference between the description and the evaluation is, in the description, you're not evaluating. So a good way to understand that is no evaluative terms in the description. There shouldn't be, oh, they have great French fries. Oh, I can't stand the Big Mac. No, those are evaluative terms. That's telling us what you like or don't like. In the description, you're just describing. You're telling us about the place with no set evaluation, and just 2 descriptive comments when you're taking the quiz. When you get to the actual critic speech that you'll actually submit, you want about a minute of content in the description and a minute in the evaluation. But we're not about the content in that quiz. We just want to make sure you have the structure. So 2 descriptive comments, and then you always end your first main point with the transition. That's one of the most important structural aspects of any outline. You must have a transition that tells us the main point you're leaving and the title of the main point that you're going into, because if you didn't have a transition, the audience would never know when you went from one point to the next. They'd have to figure it out on their own. And so, because all of you will have the same two main points, description and evaluation, your transition when you're doing the quiz, now that you know more about, or you have a description, or you're more familiar with, and I don't care if you use synonyms to equate description, we will next focus on my overall evaluation. So all of the transitions, I'm done with the description. Now we're going into the evaluation. They should all sound the same. Then in the evaluation, just give 2 sentences that are evaluative. 2 things that you liked or didn't like, and don't need a transition at the end of your last main point, because now we go to the conclusion. In the conclusion, it begins with the summary. And again, in the summary, you're just summarizing the 2 main points. So just tell us the 2 titles. In the last few minutes, I've provided both a description and my personal evaluation of McDonald's. So all of your summaries should sound similar. The only thing that changes will be the topic of the speech. Restate your thesis. Hopefully now you have a better understanding of why I like McDonald's so much. And then, good way to end a speech is to always refer back to the attention getter. That's what we call the sandwich effect. And again, I go into that in a lot more detail in the instructional video on structure. But if you want to get a 10 on the quiz, just ensure that the outline format that you submit looks identical to this. In the introduction, we have an attention getter, topic sentence that tells us the topic, thesis statement that gives us your overall opinion of the topic. In the preview, in the next few minutes, I'm going to give you both a description and an evaluation, give us 2 descriptive comments, followed by a transition. Now that you have a description of McDonald's, let's next focus on my evaluation, 2 evaluative comments, and then a conclusion with the summary of your 2 main points. In the last few minutes, I've given you both my description and evaluation of McDonald's. Restate your thesis, and then end your speech in a way that gives it a strong sense of finality. And a good way to do that is to always end your speech by referring back to the opening attention getter. All right, so there you go. All right, and now back on the modules for week 3. Last thing I want to do is just to point out the week 3 module on the critic speech. Make sure that when you click on here for the critic speech, that you utilize all of the tabs. Like here, you just have kind of the little introduction here. Here's what the critic speech is about. But you go to the next tab, here's where you get the breakdown of the actual structural format that you want to follow for the outline. So you want to make sure you go through this, and your outline should look just like this. The only thing that's going to change is your content will be specific to whatever your topic is. Then, really good example of the delivery of a critic speech right here. So make sure you pay attention to that. A lot of good things in this delivery. If your outline looks like this, and if your delivery is close to this, you're going to excel on the critic speech. And then, real important, don't forget about the 3rd tab right here. Click on that. You have 2 sample outlines. And again, these are just sample outlines of a critic speech that students have done in the past. And so once you have your outline done, just compare it to the sample outline. And you want to make sure it looks the same. In my intro, I've got the 4 components: an attention getter, topic sentence, thesis statement, preview of my main points. Again, your previews are all going to sound pretty similar to this. In fact, this outline's so old, it was done on the movie Saw right after it first came out. But see here, even though different movie, different time, preview sounds the same. In the next few minutes, I'll give you both a description of Saw and my personal evaluation of the movie. All of your previews, regardless of the topic, will sound similar to that because you're all using the same 2 main points. And then here, this is a really good example too of how to do a movie without giving too much away. You only want 2 or 3 sentences that tell us what the movie's about. You know, the rest could be like here. This is a horror psychological thriller. You can talk about the genre. You can mention the main characters and the actors who played those characters. And then just a couple lines, very general about what the movie's about without giving away too much, without going into detail. Then transition into your evaluation. Here's what I liked and didn't like. Don't need a transition after the same main point, after the second main point. And then in your conclusion, summarize your main points. And again, it's going to sound very similar. All the speeches will, because you're all using the same main points. Restate your thesis in your speech by referring back to your opening detention getter. And then here you've got another sample outline. This is on Beyonce's album Lemonade. And it was a video album that she released, actually. Student did her critic speech on it. And here's an example of that outline. So use the sample outlines right here in this tab. If your outline looks just like the sample outline, you're going to be good to go. And then on the last tab right here on the critic speeches, here you've got a couple examples. Just students in the past who did their critic speeches just like you. Take a look at these. This gives you a good idea of what the finished presentation should be. And to get a complete on this assignment, on the critic speech, you'll turn in your video of the critic speech at the end of the week. I want your eyes on the camera at least half the time. So that's okay if you use your outline. That's why you want to use an outline too, so you can easily glance down, see the next line, look up, and continue on with your speech. But I want your eyes on that camera at least 50% of the time. All right, and then last thing today, I just noticed this with a couple of you, but anytime you're giving a speech, you never want to begin with any kind of disclaimer. You know, you don't want to submit your next speech and say, oh, I really struggled with it. That's why I'm talking kind of fast, or I'm really nervous. You can probably tell in this speech. No, never give any kind of disclaimer to begin a speech. The opening words, the only thing your audience should hear at the beginning is your opening attention getter. Look, if you're really nervous before you give a speech, the last thing that you want to do is to out yourself at the start of the presentation. Or maybe you're not feeling good, a little bit of a cold, right? Well, don't begin your speech with, oh, I have a little bit of a cold today. Please bear with me. In fact, I never want to hear, please bear with me, ever at the start of the speech. Because all you're doing with the disclaimers is you're trying to lower the expectations of the audience before they see your presentation. And why would you do that, right? I mean, really what you're doing is you're just holding up a big visual aid that says, before your speech starts, my speech is going to suck, right? So even if your speech is going to suck, even if you don't feel prepared, even if you're overly nervous, right? Don't tell the audience. Let them figure it out on their own, because most of the time they won't. So never, ever, ever begin any kind of speech or presentation with any kind of disclaimer, right? No apologies. Begin with your attention getter. Let the audience figure it out on their own. All right, have a good week. I want to see you guys really work hard. Utilize all the materials. Make sure you read everything, you watch everything. If you do, you'll have no trouble at all putting your outlines together for your upcoming speeches. All right, have a good week.